Hey kids, it's Old Man Shouting at Clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders show.
Hey GT. What are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey, kids. Welcome back to another week of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% impartial, completely unbiased, and thoroughly humbled co-host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. And joining me this week, back from the brink of death, it's GT.
Hey, how is everybody? I'm glad to be back.
Good to have you. And it's the original band all back together because MJ's with us this week. Hey, MJ.
I have solidified my starting role.
Yes, you have. Locked in there. But it was great of MJ, too, to jump in when we needed her for those two shows. That was really good. I'll say right off the bat, I'm humbled because I was 1 for 3 out of Pick'em this week, and I actually thought I was doing okay in points on fantasy. I got 101.8, which is usually a good week, but there were points to be had everywhere, and I lost by over 50 points. So that was Dalt from Rouge Radio, and I'm back to 3 and 3, so back at 500, and I've got Greg on Sports from Piffles podcast next week, so we'll see how that all goes. That's about brings us up to where I was at now, but GT was away last week when we talked about the negotiation lists, and I think you had a comment you wanted to make.
I did. I have issues. More than issues. Sorry, I am going to cough probably throughout, so I apologize. I'm going to drink some water, try not to cough too much over the course of the next little while we're chatting, and maybe it'll even keep me quiet for a second or two. But nonetheless, I just thought, I listened to the podcast, of course, afterwards, and I had put the negotiation list on my news from last week when it was first announced, and I thought 3 of you talked about it, but very briefly. Obviously, that was what you thought of it. You all said, no big deal. And I went, wait, this is a huge deal. I have to do the rebuttal. Now, I spoke to my wife about your comments and then about my issue with your comments. And she said, you're such a nerd. Only nerds care about this stuff, which is basically what you guys said. However, I will say it for the nerd on the podcast, I guess that's now me. This is big news. The negotiation list predates the CFL. The negotiation list was introduced in the 30s and into the early 40s when Americans were first allowed into the old rugby union leagues. It's prior to the 1958 amalgamation of the 2 leagues into the CFL. It is basically the way for, at that time, Americans to get drafted because the CFL does not have an American draft. They have, each team is allowed to put up to 45 players on their list. The list is comprised of players that are not currently signed. They're in the NFL. They're in other professional leagues. So it could be somebody in Europe. It could be somebody in Japan. It could be somebody, I think there's a pro league in China now. And also in American colleges. That can be a little confusing sometimes because Canadian players can get added to the negotiation list. The Riders have currently Chase Claypool, who was with Pittsburgh and then Chicago and then a couple of other, I think he's in Buffalo now. But he was never drafted and he's been unsigned. So even though he's Canadian, he can be added to the negotiation list. Another quirky Canadian CFL silliness rule, but that's how it works. I think it's important because a few years ago, they opened up 10 names to the list. And then last week, they finally opened up the entire 45 names on everybody's list to the general public. Now, nerds like me have been wanting this list for years. Within the 2 days of that being opened up, I saw at least a half a dozen international articles about the negotiation list, how the process works, and interesting players from various colleges, including some guys that are currently in the NFL. That's all part of why this is important. It brings international attention to the list, brings international attention attention to the league. As you said last week, old man, I have no idea who these players are. I don't know a U.S. college unless it's got a state's name in it. However, the alumni and the U.S. college followers and people that do follow NCAA football are all well into those type of players. So the fact that somebody puts their name out there and makes noise draws attention to the league to a wider audience. I also think it's important because it allows players and agents in the U.S. to understand that the team in particular has their interest, and therefore all of a sudden they have an option that they might not have even known they had before. It also allows for trades within the negotiation list that become interesting, because a lot of times you've heard that and a player to be named from someone's negotiation list in a trade, and you go, well, who's that? We don't know. Well, for example, the latest one and the biggest example of that is Chad Kelly. He was traded from Edmonton's negotiation list to Toronto's negotiation list simply because he didn't want to play in Edmonton. And his agent reached out and said, I don't want to play in Edmonton. If you can negotiate a trade to get me to the east where my family is, then I will be more amenable to looking at the Canadian Football League as an option. And we live in a world where information is king. And the more information we have and the more information you get out to fans, the more the game and the league is going to grow. So the fact that Stuart Johnson has already abolished the secrecy, drawn back the curtain, whatever you may think about it, is great. I'll also give you another example of why it's kind of interesting. Because you can look at the list and you can say, that's how my team views their needs are, because they have protected this number of players at each position. And I'll give you two that I did before I got tired of doing this, because unfortunately I couldn't sort, so I had to do it manually. But in BC, their negotiation list consists of 12 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 9 wide receivers, 4 offensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen, 2 defensive ends, 2 linebackers, and 2 defensive backs. So and you look at that and go, oh, BC's got a lot of quarterbacks, man. They must think they need a quarterback down the road. On the other hand, it's interesting, Calgary, the next team over, geographically has 2 quarterbacks on their list, 3 running backs, 7 wide receivers, 4 offensive linemen, 7 defensive linemen, 2 defensive ends, 2 linebackers, and 11 defensive backs. It's really varied. And if you go through the list of all 9 teams, you'll see the same kind of thing. If you're interested, if you're in the weeds a little bit like I am, then you're going to go, that's kind of cool. I like that. Then you will see some names and you go, oh, that's interesting. Why did that guy get put on that list? In the Ticats case, they had Johnny Manziel on their list for years. But that paid off for them because eventually he got there. They sold a ton of jerseys. They got all kinds of press all over North America and around the world with the Hamilton Tiger Cats name associated to it. Then they traded him for like a crazy amount of picks and ruined Montreal for 5 years. And you're right. It's just like the draft. And I'm a draft nerd too, so I can talk CFL draft all night as well on when it happens. I wanted to take a couple of minutes, and I probably wouldn't have went this deep last week, but in a rebuttal, you have to.
Okay.
So that's it. That is negotiation list 101, 201, and 301 for that matter.
Okay, well, definitely far more than we covered on it last week. And there's points there that I have to admit make some sense. I still sort of go back to my view on it, though, is that I know it gets international coverage, but I don't know how much good it does because nobody that sees it internationally understands it. And I can't remember the quarterback, but there was one of the bigger name college or NFL quarterbacks about a year and a half ago that got added to a list. So it got released and it got pressed down in the States and everything. And what I found on everything that I was seeing anyone American on, they were going, oh, so he signed with them? No, he didn't sign with them. Oh, so he has to agree to this though, right? No, he doesn't have to agree to it. It's just they've got and then they had no idea what was going on. So how much does that help us? I don't know. Yeah.
It's kind of easily explained as an American draft. That's really, in essence, what it is.
Yeah, and I get that. But I guess what I'm saying is there's nobody to explain that to them. So they see it and they get confused. They don't know what it means. And otherwise, for me, I've even looked at the ones where you get the 10 names on the list. They come and they go and they're all over the place, and we never see most of them up here anyway.
Yeah,
So
that's true too.
I can be a bit of a football nerd myself, but I have to say, to me, that's just too much interest for checking out people that we may never see and everything. So, but agree to disagree. Got anything on that, MJ, or are we?
Actually, I really appreciate explaining to me because it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to look it up though. But it's actually really cool to learn about it, so thank you.
Yeah, and I don't look at it more than once, or I haven't looked at it because you didn't know what the list was. Now that I know what the list is, I'll look at it maybe once or twice a year at most. The next step is, do we ever get to see actual, payrolls and salary structures of these teams? Because that's that would be the ultimate step.
The other thing I'll do for you, GT, is I'll forward you on Blue Sky. I was mentioning last week, somebody followed me there. They've started up a CFL transaction list tracker that they say as long as you follow them, you'll get every change that comes up on any of the transaction lists.
Perfect.
So there you go. Even though I'm not interested, I still get the information coming in. MJ, you had something about Mr. Flutie.
Yeah, this is along the lines of it's fun to have fun and baseball. So Doug Flutie threw out the first pitch at a Savannah Bananas game. And for those who don't know about banana ball, it started in Savannah, Georgia with two teams, the Savannah Bananas and the Party Animals. And it started kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters, where they do trick plays and there's different rules. But unlike the Harlem Globetrotters, the generals win, aka the Party Animals. It's expanded, and now there's the Savannah Bananas, the Party Animals, the Tailgaters, and the Visitors, and the Fire. Oh, I think there's a fireman. Anyway, it's like there's at least 5 or 6 teams now, and they're on a world tour. They sold out Fenway Park in like under 10 minutes. And so if you haven't watched it, like they always do crazy walk-ups. They have songs, they sing. They have like a designated runner. One of the team guys wears a space, like a motorcycle helmet for his designated runner outfit. And there's guys who are like batting shirtless. And like there was one guy who bats on stilts. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. If you have get a chance to watch it, watch it. ESPN is carrying to, I think, 10 of their games this year. So TSN also has it on there sometimes. It's a lot of fun. At Fenway Park, in front of a sold out crowd, Doug Flutie came out to pitch the first pitch at the Savannah Bananas game. And Doug Flutie, like, instead of only wanting the first pitch, like with nobody there, he made a batter come in and he pitched to the batter. And they were like, one pitch. Okay, one pitch to the batter. And then he was like, no, I'm going to keep pitching to this batter. And you know what? He got him out. He made him pop up to the shortstop. So good job, Doug Flutie. But they was kind of funny because they were like NFL legend. And I was like, and CFL. But it's just nice to see them pop up every once in a while doing something fun.
Yeah. Can you imagine the kind of name Flutie would have been if they'd actually given him a chance in the NFL when he was 23, 24, instead of when I think he was 36, 37 by the time he even got back there and was able to play and still outplayed most of them.
In today's world, he probably would have gotten a chance. They are so much more open to mobile quarterbacks, right? Now, he still doesn't have the size, obviously, so that would have been the biggest drawback even today. But his mobility and his scramblability and his just being able to make plays up and stuff, I think he might have had a better shot today than he did then.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. We'll never know, but it's a pity.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Pity there wasn't an adventurous GM who said, let's take a chance on this.
Thank goodness to our benefit that they did, right? Because we got the pleasure of him being, the greatest quarterback the league's seen, probably.
Yeah. We can thank their attitude towards things down there for both him and Warren Moon up here. So absolutely. I'm not complaining.
His arm still looks pretty good. He was throwing it to play. He got some strikes. So maybe he'll end up on someone's negotiation list.
You never know. Never know with Mr. Flutie. He's an amazing athlete. I don't even know how old he is now. He's got to be late 50s at least, I would think. I don't know. I'll look it up sometime.
Yeah, he at least. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that covers that off. I was just going to let folks know something that I just picked up quick. I'm not going to go through all the injuries and that, but found it interesting today that when I was looking through things for Toronto, Kelly did not participate for practice again. He's come back from limited to doing that. And Ryan Hunter and, of course, the running back Williams are still on there. So that's not there. None of them are going to be in this game. I don't know how long Kelly's going to take.
I saw an interview with the coach, and he said next week rather than this week. He's practicing this week, but and full practice, but they still don't want him to go until next week.
But today at practice, or yesterday, I guess from the list, did not participate again. So he's not going full all week anyway. On the good news for them, McManus and McMahon are both back fully participating. So
they released Kevin Brown today.
Yeah, well, McMahon that was always a stopgap anyways while McMahon was injured. So
with Williams out, still hurt, I would have thought they'd keep him around. They must not be happy with him. Yeah. And you were going to tell us about something for the panel this week, GT.
I mean, it's fairly public knowledge now, but I saw the note that Milt is back this week and starting on Friday night in Winnipeg, I guess for Friday Night Football, and that's tremendous news. Welcome back. I'm glad to have him back. I'm sure he will bring some energy, and the panel will be ready to go. And MJ, you had something as well.
Oh, yeah. So today, Milt announced on his Instagram stories that he and Sanchez are doing a YouTube show called, what's it called? The Paper Plates Show. So they're going to do the football hot takes every week. I'm sure that'll be really fun because they won't be moderated by Kate. They'll just have a free-for-all.
Yeah, it's on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay, so it's not a TSN thing. Excellent.
It's not a TSN thing.
Yeah. They probably have the contacts to at least use some of the equipment and get a good quality show out of it.
Yeah. Do you guys notice, like I kind of forgot, but I noticed this, that Barker hasn't been on?
Yeah, he's not been on all year.
Yeah. Wasn't he on like first game or something? And then
it was the first preseason game.
Yeah.
I thought I saw him once, but not much.
I like that too.
What they've been doing with bringing on where they could injured players to fill in, McManus was a great fit for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it was seeing him and Enoch side by side on the panel that made me realize Enoch Mwamba is a big man. I mean, I knew he was a large linebacker, but he even dwarfed McManus.
Yeah. I thought the panel, I was going to talk about it briefly in the game, but I thought the panel on Sunday night was tremendous. I thought they were having so much fun. I just thought it was the best panel I've seen in I don't know how many years.
Yeah. Might have been the best part of the game for anyone other than BC fans. That wasn't a fantastic game. I was also going to mention just quickly again sort of the injury stuff because we talked last week about, not this week, but last week's game, Devontae Dedmon for Ottawa got injured, taken off on a cart, and I said at the time, that looks like a season ender the way it's done. Apparently they've come back and said he's probably back within 6. So good news for Ottawa. Yeah, glad to see that. And we'll have the games from this week to talk about, but before we do, you said you listened to the show last week, GT. Any other thoughts on how we did or how lost we were without you?
Thought the show was great. I did. I mean, there was some obvious, over the top, ridiculous comments about the certain team from Hammertown, but that's okay. That's to be expected. No, I thought it was good. I will say last week, though, that I didn't get to say that game was a lot closer than it looked like. I was at the game, so live, it never felt like Toronto was out of that game. You score 38 points. If you could score 38 points, you should win the game. However, when Kenny is making catches like that those were not like just uncovered. Those were outstanding catches. And he made another one this week. And I don't think Toronto looked as bad as the score would indicate when you give up 51 points. It was just incredible that Bo was on and he loves to launch it downfield and Kenny was coming up with those time after time. Toronto never gave up by any means. What else was there? Was that? Oh, that was the Winnipeg Calgary game too, right? And that was just, I don't know what happened there. I think I tweeted at halftime. I kept waiting. Yeah, I kept waiting for this other shoe to drop because I couldn't. I was like, this isn't right. There's something going wrong here. But They managed to pull it off. That's basically the two games that probably were the most interesting. That was also that was the reckless week with Montreal and the scuffle afterwards and everything else as
You
well.
missed a big week.
Yeah, you're right. I did.
There was lots to go with there. Yes. I think I mentioned on the show last week that the Toronto Hamilton game, the commentator at one point said Toronto offense has to feel like they're a hamster on a wheel because they're running as hard as they can and they're just not making up ground. They were making the plays, but couldn't get a break.
It's not as good as the Ticats.
It's going to be a little less hard to be quite so impressive about the Ticats this week because a little different week. I don't know this. I don't understand this game at all. What the hell happened over the last 2 weeks? So let's move on and talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
Sorry, just quickly, just a quick little news note that Boris Beattie got his Canadian citizenship this week.
Oh, good.
Yes, I saw that as well. Yes.
Yeah, I always love when players come up and they love the living in Canada and being part of our country so much that they want to stay. So good job, Boris.
Unfortunately, I don't think he's with anybody this year, is he? But he may come back with some injuries.
No. Yeah, he's currently unsigned, and I thought he might have a good job by now. But I think he's probably at the top of the phone list if your kicker goes down.
Apologize for my voice, too. I'm already losing it. It seems like all this talking is a bit much for me, and I had to pre-record the Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy earlier, so I'm already fading. But I'll stick it out as best I can. First game. We've only got the 3 to talk about, luckily. First game, though, Friday night, Calgary 24 at Saskatchewan 10. Whoa.
Friday night, Saturday afternoon football?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, actually, good point. Yeah, let's start talking about that. Not Friday night. We found out, I think I believe it was at 10:30 Regina time that the game was going to be postponed till the following day. So that was, 4.5 hours. It's seen a lot of people complaining about it. And I agree that they have to do a lot better. But I give everybody involved some slack because it's the first time we've actually moved from going from a game being postponed to canceled. And done properly, they would have had a full timeline. They would have done preparation for it, that if this comes on, we know what we're looking for. We know what our decision points are. We know where we're going to make these things and be able to deal with it. I've done that. That's a lot of what I used to do, crisis management in my life. So they should have done that, but it's hard to do. And companies a lot bigger than the CFL make the same mistakes. So as long as they learn from this and move on, I'm good.
I'm not sure what
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just not sure what the complaints are, other than I don't know what the complaints are, other than what they waited too long. I never heard was it fans that were there, or is it just the people again that are sitting at home in their comfortable basements or family rooms with a 70-inch TV and a cold beer complaining that they can't watch? Well, get over it. You're not at the game. You're not sitting in a smoke-filled city, and it's like the press used to complain about being cold at the Grey Cup. It used to make me nuts. You didn't pay for your tickets, and you're sitting up in a booth with hot food. Why are you complaining about how cold it is?
Actually, I'm hearing a fair amount from the fans that were in the stands, and their complaints were there were no updates other than we're going to put it off till 6:45, and then no, it's not starting. And from the things that I've seen from that point, no, it's not starting. We'll let you know until they came back on about 10 o'clock their time and said, okay, if we can get going by 11:15, it's still going to play. But there was no updates. They didn't seem to have any communication within the stands itself.
Yeah, that's a fail.
So this is where I say with the decision points, you come out and you say, okay, we're going to postpone it till 6:45. That's fine. Then you say, okay, at 6:45 over the next hour and a half, we will wait for these conditions to clear and then update you if it hasn't cleared by then, so people know what to expect. And that was all it would have taken. Just a few more steps in there like that.
Yeah, clear expectations, and you're right. If that's a fail if they didn't do that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they even enacted a weather protocol. I don't think this would have happened with Randy as commissioner, and so I don't think that anyone had a clue what to do, because actually their weather policy rules, that should have been a mini game the next time they met. by their own rules.
See, I've had that explained differently as well, is that by their rules, as long as the players haven't had a warm-up, then there is no mini game. If the players have warmed up and it's an official game and then they go to the mini game, and if they've played X number of minutes, I think it's 2/3 of the game, then the game is considered finished and they don't even go to that. It's the score of at that time.
Yeah. And see, I heard yet another explanation from the league. And that was that if the teams don't play each other again, then it's a tie game, or if a makeup date can be made within the same weekend, they can do it, which is what happened there. If they do play each other again, they're still, if they can do the makeup date in the same weekend, they're still allowed to do that. Otherwise, it's the mini game, the 2-series mini game at the start of the following game. So they play their 2 series, get that over, decide who won the first game, and then play a full game.
I also think it helps that they had an afternoon slot time available and there wasn't another game going on.
Yeah,
and the stadium was available, and
yes, exactly. If it had been in another city, it might not have been available. Like in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, they have other, even BC, they have other things going on in the stadium, so they might not have had that availability. Yeah, I think they do the best. You do your best with it, and you can't predict that stuff. And yeah, you should have contingency plans in place in case. And you'd like to think that they now do, or they now will at least begin to think about them.
Yeah,
because it's going to happen again. We can see that.
Oh, yeah. Can happen anywhere. They're talking about smoke in southern Ontario this week. So
I feel they've always played in worse air quality. Like there are games in Calgary and Edmonton that had that bad of air quality. And they were like, we always have a joke about how the CFL field level sensors always have the smoke under 7. So I couldn't believe that I was like, oh, they're going to play this game. We all had a big joke about it. Our whole family's laughing about it. We're like, oh my goodness, they're still going to play. And no. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Overall, I have to say it was the right decision. I wish it had been handled a little differently in some ways, but yeah. And I think the difference is now they used to feel like they'd get maybe one of those games every 4 or 5 years, so that if they fudged and played anyway, by the time the next discussion came up, everybody forgot. Now I think they know they're going to have to deal with this probably once or twice a year at minimum. But anyway, we finally got through it. Calgary didn't have to fly back home and come back the next morning. The way they started talking about after the game, they managed to get rooms at, I'm told, one hotel in the U of R dorms opened up for them. And you can debate whether that was better for them, the delay, than it was for Saskatchewan. I don't know. But we finally got to the game. They started off, very first pass, VA went deep. Saskatchewan picked it off, brought it back a reasonable difference. And I was thinking, well, this game's going to go well. I think that was the last time I thought that.
Oh no, there was two turnovers there.
There were 2 turnovers, but still, once they got that turnover, and I think they took it back to about the Calgary 40s or so, couldn't even get a first down and settled for a field goal. That was depressing. And then Calgary came out and started marching the way they were doing. And to me, literally, I'll let you jump in on more of this, GT, but to me, there were about 3 things that were keys to the game. Calgary did a real good job of picking on the Saskatchewan injuries. Trayvon Campbell was out at the boundary corner, and that was Brooks' replacement, was who Alfred burnt for, 8 for 8 and 156 yards, I think, and a couple of touchdowns. So they did that really well. And then I don't know if it's really completely that they've improved their run defense as much as they have, or how much it had to do with the fact that they also had Tavon Tate out as right guard or left guard, and Zach Fry was in there. And that is a drop off. Plus, I saw at least 2 or 3 times where there were pressures or sacks because Furland at center should have been double teaming with the right guard with Rimmer, but he wasn't. He was going over to help Zach Fry on every play that I saw. And I think that really messed up their running and pass game. So that was the one thing that really keyed to it. And the other thing was Calgary. I wish I could have seen exactly what defenses they were running, but it was obvious they had a plan where they were not going to let Saskatchewan complete anything up the middle, and they weren't going to give up runs. So the only thing open to them were those wide out passes.
AJ had 9 yards rushing.
Yeah, he had 1 at the half, and 9 total with praised. Yeah. Yeah, it was. I thought it was interesting, and I had the exact opposite, reaction to the first three drives of the game because Calgary was like, well, there was the interception on the very first throw. Then there was the Mills fumble on the next drive. On the next drive, after they stopped them again, there was a punt, and the punt returner almost fumbled the punt out into Saskatchewan. I was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, he had a tough day.
But then I was like, at the same time, the defense has already held Saskatchewan twice to only 3 points. They're playing fairly well, even at that stage. And then, as you said, Calgary just seemed to relax or something and then just play. And they dominated from that point on both sides of their lines. The offensive line was giving VA so much time. He had lines of vision to throw the ball. That was just incredible. His receivers were making catches, but he was delivering the ball right to where they needed to be as well. And he was making reads. They were talking about it all game. His eyes, where he was reading and what he was looking at, was wide open. He was really impressive. Mills was very impressive on the ground as well. He was running very hard after that fumble, and they really ran at Saskatchewan, which Saskatchewan had only given up, 56 yards or something a game before that. And then they only allowed those wideouts, and you could see Harris just getting more and more frustrated, more and more, because he didn't have time at all to make reads. He just had to quickly get rid of the ball the entire game. So it was a completely different game than the week before against Winnipeg. And it just showed, to me, it looked like, okay, this is another step for Calgary. This looks like they are. The week before you thought, oh, that was a whole bunch of big plays and those happen, but you can't live and die by those. I thought Saturday's game now was much more complete and much more effective, and just like well schemed, as you said, old man, on both sides of the ball, well schemed and well thought out. And it really looks like they've got some players. Now, they've got a tough road is still with the next 2 weeks between Winnipeg at home this week and then Montreal coming to Calgary the week after. So they've got a couple of weeks, but they're beginning to look like a real team that the league is going to have to take seriously, which you couldn't say last year and you couldn't say the year before. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm still not 100% sold, but I am seeing the pieces in place that maybe they're getting some players back too, because Malik Henry is just about to come back, and he's a dynamic receiver, and that can change them as well. When Big Hill starts to play, although I don't think it's as desperate as it was 2 weeks ago when they signed him, but certainly when he gets to play, he can add something and maybe take some pressure off of the linebacking core in spurts, if nothing else. At this point in time, they're still the most surprising. I think going into the season, we said you never know what you're going to get. Well, we're starting to see what you're going to get, and I think they're the biggest surprise of the league so far. By far.
I just want to pump VA's tires a little bit higher. And so my son was watching the game with me, and Damian Alford did his moose celebration. Yeah. And so my kid's been doing his moose celebration all rest of the weekend for every game, for every touchdown. And VA is the one who took the time, researched him, figured out that's what his nickname was at his college, and was like, we're bringing this back and we're all going to do it together.
Yeah.
And you just got to know these receivers and this O-line, those guys are going to run through a brick wall for VA. He just has such a great rapport with his players. And it's nice to see VA on a team that appreciates his talent, appreciates him, all of his off-field contributions, with his receivers, and sees it and encourages it. And he's just give him his flowers. It's been a joy to watch.
Definitely. And I got to say that there was a little bit more to that story about Moose, which I really love them telling, and it's even better. Is apparently when Alfred, because he's so tall and filling out more, but when he got to college at 18, tall and gangling and that, they called him Bambi. And then he went off for a game like he did this week, and they said, okay, you're not Bambi anymore, you're Moose.
That's good. I like that.
That is good. Yeah. And I have to agree with what you said, GT, about whatever is going on with their front seven there, they've sorted it out. They've got the scheming right. They were just not giving up anything. And as bad as it might have been, the drop-off with the Saskatchewan line, I can't see it making that much difference overall. So they're getting their stuff worked out. And I said to myself, it's kind of weird as a fan, taking this from a fantasy point of view. 2 weeks ago, whoever Calgary was playing, you wanted to take very serious consideration to taking the other team's running back, because that's where points were. And 2 weeks later, you do not want to take anybody who's going to be running against Calgary after what we've seen.
Yeah, I saw an interview with one of the defensive linemen after the Winnipeg game. They were asking him about Oliveira because he started out with that great first drive in that Winnipeg game. And he said, "No, we just went to the sidelines and as a defensive line, we all sat down and said, we're not going to allow this anymore. We are not allowing the run anymore." And then after that, there was no more running in that Winnipeg game either. And so I'm wondering if that line is starting to believe in themselves as a unit and believe that they can stop the run. Right now, it's looking very good. How long it lasts, we don't know. But right now, it's looking very good.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, they impressed me a lot more against AJ this week because, like MJ said there, he had less than 10 yards rushing. Brady, even though it didn't seem like he was getting much in the way of yards other than that first sort of drive, he ended up with a significant number. I can't remember what it was. It was up around 80 yards or so, and then about another 30 or 40 through the air. As good as they did with him and shut him down, they did even better this week against AJ to shut it down completely. And that's, to tell you the truth, that's one of the things that's impressed me the most about Mills running so far is, and especially in a game like this, I can't remember what he ended up with. I think he was either just under or just over 100 yards against Saskatchewan.
I think he was just under, yeah.
Okay. And Saskatchewan's been torched over the last year and this part of this year by run games occasionally. But when they get big numbers put up against them, it's because somebody manages to break through, like that Edmonton game last year where they had 2 runs of over 50 yards apiece, and that gave them 100 and some against them. Mills didn't do that. He didn't break anything long. I think he had probably 15, 18 yards was his longest, wasn't it? But
I think so, yeah.
But he just doesn't give anything short either. He's good for 8 to 10 yards. So that to me is much more impressive as a running game than one where you every now and then break a back through and get a big score. It looks worse in yardage, but this is a better running game.
That's what I meant about the offensive line. We're spent a lot of time just now talking about the defensive line, but Calgary's offensive line was also very strong in that game because Saskatchewan's defensive line is nothing to sneeze at by any means, and they were not putting any pressure on Villa, as I said earlier, at all. And those guys were opening up holes. And you've got a raw rookie starting at center, the 9th overall pick this year. And you've got a sophomore, second-year guy that's starting at right guard, and he was a 9th overall or 11th overall last year. So they've got 2 pretty fresh guys on that offensive line that's looking really solid. And their American tackles the last few years have been horrible. But those 2 guys are back, and everybody went, here we go again. But they've been really solid this year as well. So something's happening. And then the other thing that I wanted to just mention is that there was quite a bit of talk about Trevor getting a lot of yards, also being over 400 yards and all this. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of false yardage and false stats. I didn't think Saskatchewan was ever looking like they were coming back in that game. Calgary looked like they had that game under control once they scored that first touchdown, and they weren't cruising, but they looked like they had it under control the entire rest of the game. It never felt threatening. Saskatchewan came out of the half and had a great drive to start the third quarter and scored a touchdown to get within 7. And Calgary answered with an 81-yard bomb. And it was like, okay, no, it's done. So it never felt like even Saskatchewan was threatening. They stopped them twice on 3rd and 3, and they came away with no points. And then even when they tried to get close and add points in case there was a tie at the end of the season in point differentials, they missed a field goal. So it wasn't good for the Riders.
No, it definitely wasn't. It was one of those games that you want to figure out what's gone wrong with it. But I agree with you, although I wouldn't say the yards meant nothing, because that's one of the things that I was going to point out too, was Saskatchewan 425 yards through the air, Calgary 426. And then Calgary added another almost 100 yards rushing, which Saskatchewan didn't have. So that's a lot of offense for a game that ended up 24-10. You know, though you hear those yards, you're thinking it's going to be like a 38-32 shootout or something. And it wasn't, because, like you said, GT, when they did allow the Riders to drive on them some, they got down in close, and it was deep enough in the game that it didn't make sense to go for the field goals, and they made those 2 stops.
Yeah.
That's what they needed to do. You know, last week against Winnipeg, they picked 2 off for pick sixes. This game, they made 2 stops to take 6 points off the board each time. Same sort of effect. But I think that may be beating it to death. Oh, I do have one other thing. Even when he's winning, how does Dave Dickinson manage to stay so friggin' angry? I was sitting there watching him when they were up by whatever. It was up by at least 10 or something, just ripping a strip off the ref on the sideline. And I thought, I don't know. My experience when I was a coach was, you did a lot better with the refs if you went to them when you really saw something and then you shut up about everything else. When you screamed at them that they were wrong on every play, they tend to ignore you. But
They all know
he
Dave.
is an angry man right now, it seems like.
You know who else is angry? Trevor Harris.
Oh, I believe that.
He was complaining. There was an interview. He was complaining about the weather protocol policy and all this stuff, and complaining. And I was like, you know who's not complaining? The away team who had to sleep in dorm rooms. They did not complain. They came out and played. So
yeah,
I
agree with that.
I wasn't sure about that interview because it was almost like it was a setup to fail for him. He could have said, he really couldn't have said anything other than, it is what it is, and both teams play under the same circumstances, and we lost. Yeah. Basically, that's all he should have and could have said. But to go on, it did sound, even though it's not, he kept saying it's not sour grapes, it sounded like sour grapes.
I'll have to look that up. I didn't catch that one with it. I've been busy getting ready for my trip the first few days of this week, so not spending as much time paying attention with it as I was. I thought, same as everybody else was saying, that delay when Calgary wasn't prepared to stay should have really favored the Riders. But I was saying to MJ before you came on, I wonder if maybe just that impromptu night of having to stay at a dorm and pull together and overcome adversity didn't really help Calgary out quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, I thought of that too, because going into the game, I think everybody picked Calgary. Or no, I think
we did.
I picked
MJ and MJ too, both picked Calgary, and I would have probably went Saskatchewan going into that game. I probably would have went Saskatchewan. Even going up into the game on Friday night before the delay, when I turned it on and realized, there's a delay, I still was ambivalent, but felt like Saskatchewan was going to win a very close game. I thought it would be a low scoring, kind of the score we ended up with, but even closer, and Saskatchewan would somehow win it. And then I was like, I don't know. Going into Saturdays, I was like, I'm not sure who this helped. I'm really not sure who this delay affected more. And then it certainly, I don't know if Saskatchewan looked flat, but they just or Calgary just looked ready. I'm not sure, but certainly Calgary seemed more ready than Saskatchewan was.
Oh, definitely. It's a good thing for the show that MJ2 was on replacing you last week, because that got the show another win in Pick'em. If we'd been here, we would have been Saskatchewan. We would have been a little out of luck. But anyway, as much as we love talking those two teams, maybe we need to move on to someone there's one other person here who's interested in other teams. So let's go to the other Saturday game, which was supposed to be the only one, where Ottawa was 20 at Hamilton 23. And a game that was closer than I expected it to be and lower scoring than I expected it to be.
A game that the Red Blacks lost. Like, the Ticats didn't win, the Red Blacks lost. At one point during this game, my mom texted me and she texted my sister and I and were like, what is going on with Bo Levi? And I was like, well, Mom, I don't know. Good thing Kenny can catch things within a 10-yard radius, because he is just overthrowing and underthrowing. How do you go from playing the Argos and just running up a score to barely eking out a win that really the Red Blacks did it to themselves?
It wasn't a good game, unfortunately, other than some of Kenny Lawler's catches.
The touchdown catch was incredible, and just unbelievable.
Yes.
But, and there was a couple of other good catches throughout the game, but I agree with you, MJ. Ottawa is, I wouldn't call them snake bit, but they just are doing consistent things to lose games. I spoke with my brother who's, is a season ticket holder in Ottawa. He's not a Red Blacks fan, but he's a season ticket holder. And he was like, I don't get how much longer can we go with this coaching? And I said, well, I think if they lose, and I expect them to lose again on Saturday, they're going into a bye, and then it's like they just continue to make mistakes that like rookie head coaches and rookie coaching staffs make. And 3 years later, a head coach like Bob Dice shouldn't be making those mistakes and doing things and allowing his team to be still taking those penalties. And he hasn't established like Corey Mace taking over saying we're not doing that anymore. Just like stuff like that. And they just continue to shoot themselves in the foot one game after game after game. And I can't see him, they go into a bye after this weekend. And I would be very surprised if he's still a coach after this weekend.
Well, and we railed on Tommy Condell last week, and my point still stands. Like he just cannot make adjustments fast enough or well enough. You should be utilizing Lewis. Yeah, Lewis should be utilized better, but not throw to him 3 times in a row. I'm like, you can't throw to Lewis 3 times in a row. Third one was an interception. I'm like, because they know what you're doing.
Yes. And you've got a player like Pimpleton who's doing punting now too, but still gives you a very good chance at good yardage. And you give him what I think 2 throws for 3 yards, a couple of short things that he gets no time to do anything. No, I agree with that. I mean, one of the notes that I made is I said to myself at the time, part of both the beauty and the most annoying thing about football is it's basically chess, but you play with human pieces that don't do what they're supposed to some of the time.
Right.
Because so much of that game that could have been really good if they executed. There were parts of it that were well played and well called, but it was just... I don't know if the teams were off or what they were doing. I also thought
the Ticats. Oh, sorry. All 3 of us.
No. Jump in, MJ.
They moved the Ticats up the power ranking, and I was like, they didn't deserve it. I don't think they deserved it based on how they played.
The most interesting thing I found out about during that game, which I watched at 1:30 till 3:30 in the morning on fast forward, but I will say the one thing I learned is that it was weather related in Hamilton too, because it was hot and sweaty and muggy, and those guys must have been exhausted. But I did learn that that there is a rule that if it's more than 35 degrees, the players don't have to wear socks.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that rule before, but because I noticed one of the guys wasn't wearing socks. And then they mentioned on the broadcast that that's a rule. And I went, that's interesting. And then I looked and went, there's a whole bunch of guys not wearing socks. So just weird little quirky rules come back again, right?
It was 33 plus humidity. So it's probably closer to 40 if you know anything about Southern Ontario. So yeah, I was like, oh, it's the calf game. Let's see everyone's calf game. See how nobody's wearing this. Well, you could some people wearing this. The Bo Levi's cool, calm, collected. I'm from Texas.
Yeah.
And amazingly enough, not a lot of cramping up the way I would have expected.
Right.
Those are the games back in high school, though, when we didn't really know what we were doing and thought salt was a good thing. We'd be popping salt tablets all game with something like that.
Was it last year where there was a bunch of, at the beginning of the season, a bunch of guys, cramping and overheating and had heat exhaustion, had to get carted off the field? This year, none of that. So I think that teams are like, okay, this is actually how we handle heat.
They're learning. Like I said, doesn't have to be perfect the first time as long as they learn on these things. And I don't know if either of you have anything else to say. The last comment that I had for this game is that somebody should really go to the management at Hamilton and explain to them that if they're looking for a receiver that drops the ball consistently, they can probably get one for league minimum and save the $300K on Tim White.
Oh my gosh. She yelled, do not throw to Tim White in critical situations at the TV. Just screamed it.
I shouldn't chuckle because I know how hard it
is. It hit his hands in the end zone or whatever. Dave Stalla would never.
No, not on that
No,
one.
that was a gross
Okay.
game.
Yes. So the last one, and again, I'll say this. It's a weekend of football that was probably for some fans was really good, but for entertaining football, not really. Because, that Hamilton Ottawa one was as close as it got. Like you said, GT, about the Saskatchewan Calgary one. It was fairly obvious after that response bomb on their first drive of the second half. Yeah, I'll watch this, but I've seen enough Rider games to know how this is going to end up. It's just a matter, do we get it back within 3 points before we lose, or do we do nothing? And then we get, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, and I was, as I said, watching because I got in late, so I had recorded both games on Saturday, and I didn't even start the first game until 10:30 or 10:45. So it was 12:30, 1:45 when I started the second one. And I was like, why am I watching this all the way to the end? I could just watch it tomorrow, but I'm watching it all the way to the end. And then Sunday, I felt the same way. It was like, if I didn't have to watch this, I don't think I would watch this all the way to the end.
That was another tough one. Yeah. Heck, if you were watching that time, if they'd got started on Friday, you could have watched it the same time live. Yeah, this next game, BC 32 at Edmonton 14. And Edmonton, after looking reasonably good against Ottawa and looking like they were going places, this was the most amateurish display of football I've seen in a long time, I got to say.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah. On both sides of the ball.
Just every aspect of this game was awful.
And I don't want to give them too much too much credit or too much a break, so to speak, because it's Edmonton. But I do think that they're 5 games into a complete rebuild with a complete new team, with a complete new coaching staff, with everything else that we've talked about. They had 2 really good games, or they had a game where we thought they were coming along. They played, as we said, a quarter and a half. And then last week they played 3 quarters, and that was enough. And then you're going to see setbacks. And it's going to be this until I think we're into 12, maybe even 15, maybe even all 18 games of the year before you can really make a judgment. I've seen people already saying get rid of Ford and fire the coach and move on, another disaster. I'm like, no, it's way too early for those kind of comments. And could they have pulled Trey Ford earlier? Sure, they could have. But you publicly said at the beginning of the year, this is our guy. We paid him $400,000. We're not going to do what we've done before. We are now all about continuity. We're about not when there's no more revolving door, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You cannot just pull the guy then. You got to let him play.
They did when they played the Red Blacks, though. They pulled him out and put Cody in for 2 different series. This game, they just let him twist in the wind.
Yeah, but those are just weirdness that I have no idea. That's just bizarre coaching. That's not because Trey Ford.
No, I know it's not because of Trey Ford. So it's just interesting. So they did that against the Red Blacks, and then this time they're like, implode, please. We're just going to let you twist. Until 3 minutes and 42 seconds in the fourth. He had 34 passing yards.
Yeah, I know. Whether they could have pulled him and then put him back in and said, okay, Trey, sit and watch for a series or 2, and then you're going back in. They might have been able to do that. But again, I think that's rookie coaches as well as young quarterbacks, right? I don't know that if they had Ryan Dinwiddie, if they had Scott Milanovich, if they had even Jason Moss behind the bench, Dave Dickinson, quarterback coaches that were there and were experienced, maybe they would have been able to do that. I just got to give them a bit of a break. I mean, they were really bad and horrible, but I just don't think you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as as the saying goes.
That's true. You've committed to what you're doing for the year. You've got to stick with it.
Yeah.
It's too early for that. But the offense was bothersome to me. And you can put that down to the fact that BC does have a good pass defense. They don't give up a lot of yardage usually. But it was the defense. There was no way they were going to win that game. I rant all the time about sloppy tackling, not wrapping up, going in for the big hit. And there was a lot of that. But it was also just positional play, the way they were handling it. In my mind, just about every pass out there got probably twice the yardage it should have. Simple things like when you need 7 yards on first down or 7 yards to get a first down, and you'll set up your 3 receivers to one side against zone, run them out, whichever of the zone defenses drops back, you throw to him at 8 yards, boom, you're close there. That's a standard play. It runs every time, and the defender comes up and tackles him at the 8 yards. When they ran that, they were getting 15, 20 yards out of it every time. There was nobody there to stop him from turning and going upfield. Same thing with several other of the patterns that I saw out there. Either there was nobody in position, or they would come in and try for this great big hit and whiff on it. Why, I had trouble seeing the end of the game. It was painful to me to watch a defense that should be good perform that badly.
Yeah, they were really bad. Their defense was really bad. Like, Butler was just chewing them up, on the ground, too. They couldn't stop any of that either. Serezna with the injury, and then they pulled him out. They put him back in. How did they miss that on the sidelines, when they popped his knee? And this isn't 1985. This is 2025. You don't pop a knee back in place and send the boy back out there, right? It's like, come on.
Ridiculous. I could not believe
they should be fined for that.
Who does that? Instead of maybe like a sprain or a partial tear, that guy's fully torn something probably because you sent him out there. It's just reckless.
One of your big off-season acquisitions. Yeah. You've already lost one of them to the 6-game list. You've got him. You've got Mechie, who was another big one. I don't know how bad he's hurt, but he got hurt in that game. They're taking over for Saskatchewan on that. Just sign a bunch of free agents and then send them straight to the rehab facility because they're going to end up getting hurt before the season goes. This is a game that I get almost morally offended at.
I hear you.
Do that poorly.
I can understand why, and the fans can be upset, but you just kind of got to roll with it. I think you just kind of got to roll with it this year. Hope that the decisions they made are somewhat the right ones and that they turn it around.
Yeah. Hope they learn from it. Yeah, because it's a young team all around. Their defensive coordinator's never been a defensive coordinator before. Their head coach has never been a head coach before. Their OC has been around for a while, but he's called some brilliant games, and he calls some like this where he seems like he has no idea what will possibly work.
And there was a couple of things that I thought might have even changed the game. And I turned it late into, there was 5 minutes left in the first quarter, and I saw, nothing, and nothing's happening. Basically, is what I saw. And then they showed a replay of the interception by Peters earlier in that portion that I missed, and I was like, that's a huge turning point. If Edmonton had completed that pass to Dunbar and that Peters picked off and kind of wrestled it away from Dunbar at the same time, that would have set Edmonton up deep on a nice long throw from Ford, and the confidence factor would have been oozing, and they would have been at BC's 20 early in the game. And instead, they just never got it back together after that. One of the things we talked about in the first 2 games when we said Trey Ford looks really bad, he wasn't moving around. He was in the pocket all night, like they had him cemented or stapled to the pocket, and he wasn't allowed to get out of it. And then the last 7 quarters or so that we said he looked really good, he was moving around and throwing from angles and throwing from the side of the pocket and stretching the defenses and so on. He can throw from the pocket, but you can't make him throw only from the pocket, or else you're going to get those kind of performances.
The thing is, he did well in that first drive running when the opportunities were there. And in fact, he did it so well that they had a spy on him. And he was, in those first 2 long runs, the way he was moving in the pocket, he was setting up so the spy would drift to one side on him, and then he'd burst out the other side and couldn't be caught. So that was working really well. Why they decided to go away from it, it was still there to be had later. So I'm thinking he must have been told, you got to stay in there. I don't know why you would do that. I get baffled by it. And, well. The other thing is, I didn't think the refs had a great game in this one. I thought that there were 2 penalties against the Elks that were really questionable. I thought the one PI that they got, and I think they challenged it and it was still upheld, but that one looked questionable to me, and especially because at the end of the game, there was a virtually identical play where Bellew came over and knocked down a pass for BC, and it was literally almost 100% identical in the way that he played it and everything. No call on that. And then I thought the Serezna roughing the passer call was a bad one because he had launched himself forward while VA was still in the back windup. And yeah, he hit him after the ball went out. If he was running, I would have said he passed too much difference, but he had literally, you could see he was, by the time the ball left VA's hands, he was in the air heading towards his chest. So I was saying, the refs are all for BC. But then there was one of the kick returns that went down the sideline. And after the player went out of bounds, an Edmonton player gave him a horrendous horse collar. Never mentioned. I guess the play was over then. But yeah, it was one of the worst ones, right back by the nameplate, and he went backwards and the knees buckled. But it was all in a bit of a scrum of players as everybody's rushing to the sideline. So,
right.
Anyway, I would have liked to see a little bit better job from the officials. I guess all I got to finish off there. Any other thoughts to talk about from here?
Yeah, I have a few. I just want to give my Jeremiah Mazzoli report to start. His shoulder, he was off us because his shoulder was injured, but he's back and he's the short yardage QB.
Yes.
So
and successful.
He had 3 yards rushing. Leak had 2 yards.
Yeah.
Rankin had 4. So Mazzoli was one of the top rushers.
Yeah. Yes. And he got touchdowns, or did he not? Was there a short yardage touchdown out of that?
Oh, maybe
not.
I don't know. I don't think.
No,
No.
Did Rourke? I thought Rourke scored a running touchdown, but I don't think Mazzoli got over.
Next game, don't you worry.
Yeah.
Secondly, BC has a discipline problem. That spearing call was nasty. It was completely uncalled for.
I'm sorry, I'm going to completely disagree. I don't think that was that bad at all. His arms were like this, and he went chest to chest, and his head came up and got helmet to helmet, but he went in not intentionally helmet to helmet. So I don't consider that a spearing as what I consider spearing, where you lead with your helmet, because he went in and he popped him with his arms, and his head went up and he got his helmet. And yes, it's a penalty, but I don't consider that spearing. I think you could have called, I don't know what else you call it, but when you look at that, I don't think he led with his helmet. That's my opinion.
I'd have to be on MJ's side in this one, because I did see it. You can make that hit with less danger. And the one thing that you have to do is, same as any other tackle, slip your head to the side as you're making the hit. But he didn't. He came through with his helmet right up under the chin, smashed it in. That to me is a classic roughing penalties. I don't know if you'd call it spearing or just roughing.
Yeah. I would have called it roughing, but I don't know about the technical definition of spearing. I would have called like roughing. I can see that, absolutely.
I don't even know what the difference is between grade 1 and grade 2 spearing.
Yeah, I don't know. Blowing that team out of the water. But this is like they started that fist fight in Montreal after the game last week. They're blowing a team out in the 4th. Nasty hit for that was unnecessary. So Buck Pierce has some like Corey. The Riders had this issue too with Craig Dickinson, and like when Corey Mace first came in, they were like penalties constantly, and on the ones that drive coaches crazy, right? So work to do. And oh man, you are a bow lever, I am a tray truther, and I'm furious with how they are utilizing him. It's like they did not watch any game film on him. 34 yards passing. This guy can run for 80 yards a game. He does reads when he's rolling out. I don't know why they're making him stay in the pocket. It's clearly not working. Just let him move a little bit. And also, I spent that whole game not hearing Tyrell Ford's name. I think I heard his name once, and then they showed him with Trey when they were standing on the sidelines when Trey got pulled. And I was like, this was a huge signing, splashed all over this. I don't know if he's just not playing well, if they're not utilizing him properly. I don't know what's happening in Edmonton.
I don't think people are throwing to him. I think they're scheming away from him at some point. Now, can he be involved in some way? Sure, but I noticed it as well. He was a non-factor, and to the point where you almost forgot he was there until you finally heard his name. Part of it is probably schemed by BC as well.
That may be part of it. I'd have to go back and look to see how many were targeted in his area, but he didn't have a great game. There were at least 2 that I can remember, and his coverage was not what I'm used to seeing from him. The whole defense just looked completely out of sorts. I'm not saying that anything like this happened, but that looked to me like a team that had suddenly, just before getting out to the field, something had gone wrong and there'd been a big argument and disagreement in the locker room. I'm not saying that did happen, but for some reason, there just seemed to be no coherency. They were not playing as a team at all, right down to sort of like some of the coaching decisions and stuff too.
Well, you saw how mad Ford was at Killam last week after the game. Also, just to now we need to talk about the Lions a little bit. Rourke looked good, and he's got a new target. I think is going to pan out quite nice with him with Berryhill. They had some really nice chemistry together.
Yep, Berryhill's becoming the deep guy. He's got not quite as much yards as Hatcher, but he's got half the receptions Hatcher has and more touchdowns. He doesn't get so many looks, but he's making the most of them when they're there. Katoy has also been playing very nicely for them.
I thought Katoy had a terrific game. He really it looked like Katoy from 2 years ago and beyond, because he wasn't great last year and he wasn't early this year, but I thought that was his best game in a long, long time.
They look like they've got some stuff. Their defense confuses me because statistically it looks like they're good, but they don't feel that good to me. It's going to be really curious to see what happens with Saskatchewan in BC this week, where it's the two starting quarterbacks, not the backups, and Saskatchewan doesn't have the home advantage. I think I'm still going to take them because it's too close to call. I don't have a high degree of confidence there. Next week will be 7 weeks, which is officially a third of the way through our 21-week season, and I feel like there's still 3 or 4 teams I just do not understand at all.
Yeah.
Edmonton is definitely one of them. Ottawa is one of them. Calgary I'm starting to understand, but it's that kind of a turnaround is hard to believe. And even Montreal, what happened to them after they lost Alexander?
Yeah, I didn't think there'd be as big a drop off there, and I guess that's part of what we'll talk about the games going forward. I agree with you. I think there's more teams than 4 that I don't understand this year. There's like almost the entire league I don't understand this year.
Well, like making predictions is ridiculous.
At least I would say probably at least every team has had one game that went completely the opposite of what I was expecting at that point in it. All right, so that kind of covers off. Oh, there goes my voice completely. That kind of covers off everything from the previous week, so we'll have to jump on to next week. We went. Because I got overruled on the Saskatchewan game and we took Calgary, we went 2-1 in predictions.
Right on pace.
Yep, there we go. So how about this week? We're starting with Toronto at Montreal on Thursday night. Who wants to be brave and make the first prediction?
Go, MJ, go.
Davis is back. I'm going to say Montreal.
Yeah, I'm going to agree.
Yep, Davis is back. The Chad isn't. Yeah, got to. Friday. Calgary at Winnipeg. Let me start this one in saying I'm scared by Winnipeg at home enough. I'm going to take them. I don't know that I should. Calgary is playing extremely well. I would not take them if they were back in Calgary, that's for sure. But Winnipeg at home with that crowd behind them is a different team.
I'm going to take Winnipeg, but not by less than 3. I wouldn't give them more than a field goal. I think it's going to be a close one, but I'll take Winnipeg.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter what I say then. I would have picked Calgary.
Okay, well, you picked Calgary because I am keeping track of individual records for the end of the year, see how we do.
But I have reasons.
Yeah.
It's not just like they played really well at Stampede Bowl and Winnipeg looked awful against them. They went into Saskatchewan, who was also a top ranked in the power rankings. We all said it. Like they went in there sleeping on like probably twin-sized thin cots in dorm rooms and just like came in and just ran over the Riders. So I don't know. I mean, Winnipeg's hard because it's at home and the Bombers crowd has made that like the worst stadium to play in. It used to be Ivor Wynne. It used to be Mosaic. Now it's Princess Auto. So I don't know. I think it's going to be right. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close. Again, does the belt buckle travel? Because maybe it's just like the vibes.
You get Calgary. Yeah. And actually, that was one thing that I forgot to mention back in the Saskatchewan game from this week that I should have. The reason I thought that maybe it didn't help Saskatchewan so much was that stadium was half empty for the game on Saturday. There were so many people that couldn't come back, so they really lost their home field advantage. I don't know if that would have made a difference with the timing is there. So we're Montreal and Winnipeg so far. Saskatchewan at BC on Saturday.
I'm going to take Saskatchewan because I can't believe they'll have two that bad a game in a row, and I'm still not convinced on BC.
I'm taking Saskatchewan as well, and I think I'm not solid, but like I said, because of the other fellow that lives in my brain with me, I've got to honor him, and when it's close, take Sasky. How about you, MJ?
I think Trevor Harris is really pissed off, and hopefully he funnels it for good. I don't think he's gonna want to look silly again, and so I'm gonna say Riders.
2 poor games he's had in a row, though. I was gonna drop back that Calgary Winnipeg game. You were saying, GT, you thought it'd be like a field goal or so. My feeling is if Winnipeg wins, it's by 2 to 4 points. But I think if Calgary wins, they win by double digits. Anyway,
I just think that's a tough place to play.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought Saskatchewan was a tough place to play.
It would have been on Friday night. It probably would have been. You're right. So that's a big issue, a big point. I hadn't considered that home field. It was almost a neutral site by the time that game was played on Saturday.
Yep. Alrighty, and then so we go Hamilton at Ottawa, and I don't think I've gone. Maybe I've gone first. I will go first this time. I'm going with Ottawa. Go ahead, throw things at me. Ottawa is such a weird team. They do play better at home. It was a closer game than it should have been, and I think that they will stop the mistakes and put it together well enough to come up with about a close win, 3 to 5 points. But I'm taking Ottawa.
Are you waiting for me, or are you going to go?
You go.
You want to go last? Fine.
I will go last.
You know what? They are both such fickle teams. You just don't know what you're getting. I think maybe they play for Bob one more time, and it's the pink slip game, and maybe they come out on their side, on his side, and play well enough to win. So I'll take Ottawa.
So is Ottawa the team that lost badly to Edmonton, or are they the team that should have won the game against Hamilton, who ticked up a score on Toronto? This is what we're saying. These teams it's so ridiculous. Will Bo have 2 bad games in a row throwing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because he didn't play well. So what's his usual MO? Does he bounce back? Is Ottawa clean up some stuff when they're at home a little bit? I think this is last gasp, people's jobs are on the line, and usually that scares teams into playing well for a couple games. I will say Ottawa, even though I will cheer for the Ticats.
Okay.
Well, exactly. But like you say, they're all so far up in the air because it depends if it's Jekyll or Hyde for most of these teams.
It really is.
Yes, and to tell you the truth, that's the other thing that's impressed me the most probably about Calgary is that VA hasn't had a off game yet.
I'm waiting for that one. I know it's coming at some point.
Well, you think so, but I think it's got a lot to do with how good that O-line has been playing. If you keep him clean and comfortable back there, he will just rip you apart no matter how good your backfield is. And what I've seen, it's when people can get some pressure on him, and like any other quarterback, he's throwing in a rush, he may make some mistakes in that, but he hasn't yet so far. And I can't really think of another quarterback in the league. You say that about maybe Davis Alexander, although his first game wasn't really that impressive either. So
yeah, the only consistent thing has been inconsistency.
Yeah.
This stuff with Toronto, how are they going to figure into anything? Because is the Chad enough to fix them? And will he ever play? They've been saying next week for a month and a half.
You know who's more important to them is Wynton McManus.
Yes, and he will be back.
And he'll be back. And even when Kelly does come back, it's going to take them 3 or 4 games to get in sync with him because it's different cadence, it's different timing for the offensive line, for holding their blocks, moving guys out of the way because he moves differently and moves outside more than Arbuckle does. It will be. And the offense really, the last few games, hasn't been the problem. It's really been the defense. And so I think getting back McManus and a couple of other people on that defensive side of the ball will make a big difference. And at some point in time, and the fact that there's still 10 games left, because you can win 7 if they can pull off 6 more wins, they're going to be at 7, and they're probably going to squeak into the playoffs. They've done it before, for crying out loud.
Like I said, I know not. Just call me the Jon Snow of football, because I know nothing. I can't even begin to figure stuff out. You look at what the records are right now. We could be back looking at it, talking about another crossover from the west to the east.
Yeah.
Because BC's at 3-3, and they're the 4th team in the west. So.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love this game, but it can be humbling. All righty. I think that's pretty much worn us out. I've got maybe 2 minutes left in my voice, so we'll wind this up. Want to give us your social medias where people can follow you, and any other closing thoughts?
No, I've got not a whole lot other than it's at GT Barnum at Blue Sky, and carry on. Have a good week. Have a great vacation, wherever it may be, and we will talk next week.
You can follow me on Blue Sky at Sports and Plants. I'm currently making my picks for Grey Cup halftime show. Come join the conversation.
Oh, I saw that.
Hey,
I have thoughts.
Good. Okay. Well, maybe we'll do something on that next week.
Yeah. Okay. 'Cause I was actually getting to the point where I was going to add that to my list too of topics of conversation. So yeah. Okay. We could talk about that next week.
Okay. Right. Remind me to put that on there. Yes. And as far as the vacation goes, I'm going to that vacation hotbed of Cranbrook, BC.
Oh, lovely. There's a lot worse places to go for vacation.
It's true.
There are.
It's true.
I was telling MJ before, when we were chatting before this, a couple of friends went out there and bought themselves this huge, I call them their mansion, about a year and a half ago. So we're going out to finally see what it looks like. And
right.
I'm talking, this is a fellow I've known back since high school. So should be good. Anyway, I'm available at oldman-SAC on Blue Sky. The whole show is the CFL Outsiders. It's on X. Oh, I've also started out a CFL Outsiders account on Blue Sky that we'll use to promote this. Email, oldman, all one word, shoutingatclouds, all one word, @shaw.ca. And other than that, the usual beg stuff, please subscribe. Hit us if you're on a podcast. Leave us some comments. All these things that gets the almighty algorithm to notice us. Thank you for that. We'll be back next week. Probably gets confused as ever, but we'll do our best. So for this week, until next week, for GT and MJ, I'm Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.